time ever, President Obama will meet with the 5-member Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. The president, of course, continues to deal with the fallout over the government surveillance programs. This panel oversees efforts to balance fighting terrorism with protecting freedoms. President Obama previewed his meeting earlier this week, saying the board is made up of independent citizens, including, quote, fierce civil libertarians.
I'll be meeting with them, and what I want to do is to set up and structure a national conversation, not only about these 2 programs, but also about the general problem of these big data sets, because this is not going to be restricted to government entities.
Russell Tice is a former intelligence analyst for the U.S. Air Force. Russell, from your experience in these circles, what do you expect to come out of the meeting today?
Well, I think the situation for these meetings has been available since our previous president, and they've been non-existent to anemic up until this point. So I just can't see how all of a sudden such a board is going to have a say or sway into ultimately violations that are occurring against our Constitution.
So you think that the meeting today is for the most part a PR move?
Pretty much, yes.
President Obama says that there's a lot of misinformation about these surveillance programs out there, so he has asked the Director of National Intelligence to declassify more information without compromising national security. How far will that go to help squash some of the outrage or confusion that's out there?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of disinformation going on. I've always said that the situation is much worse. At some point, I'd like to talk about that. Everything I've seen is where they fall back to the next line of defense. We've seen the previous director of NSA, and I've seen this director. They're basically not telling the truth about what's going on, and they look at what's coming at them from Mr. Snowden's information and what's happened in the past, and they just fall back to the next line of defense. The situation is much worse than what's going on that we know.
How much worse?
Well, for instance, NSA today is collecting everything, including content of every digital communication in this country, both computer and phone, and that information is being stored indefinitely, and that's something that they're lying about. And that facility out there in Utah is online right now.
And the fact that they have said that they do not do that, you're saying that that's just a flat-out lie?
That's correct.
The Guardian, the paper that broke the NSA news, posted 2 more classified documents. I'm sure you're aware. One reveals that the FISA court apparently allows domestic communications to be kept even if they were acquired inadvertently. That contradicts claims by the president, other top officials as well. Are they also flat out lying about this, or is there a nuance to this, perhaps?
There is a nuance. You got to understand the FISA court is being used as a screen to be able to use information that ultimately they can use to throw at somebody in a court of law with a grand jury. They did that when they threw the grand jury at me, and they did that to Jim Risen when they put him up against the grand jury, where they say, we have these digital records that you called this person, this source, but they won't discuss what you said, even though they had word for word everything that you've said, but they won't use that in a court of law, and they'll fall back to the FISA court to say that's how they had justification, just to get the metadata.
Before I let you get out of here, I want to talk to you about another aspect of this story. There are reports now that the outside company that conducted the background check on Edward Snowden is the subject of an investigation, essentially because of its ineptness. How widespread are the problems with the way that we conduct background checks on folks with high security clearances in this country?
Well, every check I've had has been pretty thorough. So I know they've outsourced a lot of that, because here recently, especially after 9/11, they've had the volume of so many people that they're trying to put into the system that I'm sure they're being overwhelmed by that number of people. So I mean, as far as the IT world is concerned, I mean, the education that would be required to be an analyst like myself is fairly extensive, as well as your background or your experience in mind with the military at first. But Mr. Snowden was hired because of his expertise with computers as an IT guy. And that is, when you're an IT guy, that's the main thing you need to know is how to work those computers.
Russell Tice, thank you, sir. Do appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Still on deck this hour, the renewed